Hi, I'm LifeCoachLANDRY, and the topic is important communication rules for relationships. I'm going to give you 8 of them. A lot of times we get in relationships and communication is defined differently by who you're with. So I say there's some general concepts you should follow in a relationship. We're all guilty of breaking these things, but if you try to stick to most of them, you're going to find a lot of success, okay? If you go back through your relationships in your life, the ones that really meant something to you, and the ones that were compatible, and you're dating right now and you're meeting compatible, or you're with someone that really, really gets you and you get them, these things are going to sound very familiar to you, okay? Number 1, try to never discuss really important things over text, okay? Oftentimes tone, sarcasm, when you're being serious, when you're not, these things kind of get misaligned somewhere along the line. Maybe you're being serious about it and they're taking it lighthearted, or vice versa, right? And you don't want something that you care about or someone you care about to misunderstand what you're saying. The only time people typically revert to text is for 2 reasons. Number 1, it's convenient. It's convenient for me to just shoot you something and not have to do it. The other is because they can't get to you any other way. So you have no choice that you're going to have to read some long text they're going to send you because you're simply not communicating, which is the whole rule and the whole concept of what I'm talking about. Okay, you need to check if you're a good communicator before you start applying these things, okay? Number 2 is be honest with each other, okay? It's important when you talk that you set the standard of being honest on an ongoing basis with each other, because this is going to really help kind of really put together what you two are, right? When you're honest with somebody, you're basically saying, I cherish who you are and I always want to give you the right information. And the whole point of communication, don't communicate to say goodbye. Don't communicate because you want to be together. When you don't communicate, you're basically saying, I'm not sure, is what you say when you don't communicate, okay? Number 3 would be don't bring things up when you know for a fact that you're sensitive and you're prone to being irrational and angry. There's nothing that's ever going to be solved by an irrational person talking to a rational person. There's nothing that's going to be solved by a person who's calm and a person who's angry. There's nothing that will be solved, okay? Good, healthy couples understand this. We all get angry. We all get sad. We all get mad. We all go through the fluctuations of whatever we're feeling. What's important is when you finally want to talk and communicate, you do it well. That's all that counts, right? Doesn't matter how long it takes you to get there. It takes you an hour to get to it or whatever. You don't want to take days or whatnot. But what's important is that you're not irrational and you're not angry when you do it, okay? Number 4 is to understand that it's okay to understand that you're going to argue, and all couples have fights, okay? Now, what is the difference between an argument and a fight? An argument is something that's happening inside the relationship, and it has no bearing on the relationship coming to an end. A fight is something serious to the point to where a relationship could come to an end. That's the difference. Arguing is we're together no matter what, all right? Fights are... What I'm saying right now, I am very on the brink of saying goodbye. Is where fights take you. Fights take you to a place that you may not be able to come back from, so be very careful. Number 5, try and use we statements instead of I feel statements, or instead of I and you. Use the word we a lot more, because if your ultimate goal is to work something out, it's both of you that's going to have to do it, right? And there's 50% to each side of the equation. So if one person feels a certain way and they want to express themselves, whether you totally agree with that or not, they're 50% of what's being talked about at any given time. It's a pretty big chunk. Something you should consider, right? Me and my girlfriend, we've been in arguments before, and one of the things when we argue is I try to make sure that there's a lot of times I don't agree, but I want to make sure I hear it before I disagree, because there's no point in cutting somebody off and not letting them have a full thought. And it's just important that you let people talk, right? Number 6, and I find this one perfectly, or not perfectly, but probably the most important out of all of them, is resolve conflict with a tone of love. And what that means is no matter what we're talking about, as long as you're communicating with me, I want it in the end because I love that person, or you love that person, or they love you. The whole point is for you to resolve it. right? The only time people feel indifferent are for two reasons when it comes to these type of things. One, you're not communicating back. So if you're not communicating back with somebody, how do you think they're going to eventually start talking to you? They're going to eventually change the tone from love to anger to goodbye. Okay? They're giving you a red flag that they're trying to communicate with you. Number two, the reason is that you are, they are, we are being some kind of disrespectfulness is happening somewhere in that conversation, not love and not resolve. It's really, really important that when you talk to somebody, the whole point is I love you, and at the end of the conversation, my goal is to be together. It should always be something you say. It helps relationships and it helps conversations. Number 7, pick your battles wisely. We all have things that aggravate the F out of us, and we're kind of like, this, I'm going to lose my mind. But what's important is no one likes a whiner and a complainer. So let's say your boo does several bothersome things. She calls you late sometimes. Sometimes they just don't show up on time. You feel disrespected or whatnot. There's positive ways to solve those things. You don't have to always get mad. You are going to get mad from time to time, but what's important is it going to improve your relationship or take away from your relationship? Okay? It doesn't mean you should ignore your feelings. I want to make sure I stress that. If you have something that's bothering you, you need to talk about it. The best way to me to handle these type of things is have a time every week that you discuss what's going on. Okay? I'm a big believer in either like middle of the week, like a Wednesday or a Thursday. I don't want to spoil a weekend with, negative stuff. I don't want to spoil the beginning of my week with negative stuff. But in the middle, you're already productive. You're in the groove of working. Maybe 7 o'clock right before dinner or during dinner or after dinner. You spend time talking about things that are important to you, agendas, setting up date night, whatever you're going to do. Date nights are perfect for Saturdays, by the way. Everybody should date night on Saturdays. Number 8, understand that conflict doesn't mean you're breaking up. Okay? As a couple, fights happen, and they're going to happen. It's called love. It's part of life. There's nothing you can do to avoid it. It's just the way it goes. And that means that hurt is going to happen, and it's inevitable. What is important is the intent. Do these people intentionally hurt you, or are they hurting you during the course of a fight? There's a big difference. So if we're arguing back and forth, or you're arguing with your partner back and forth, and you end up saying something that's a little harsh or something that hurts their feelings, that's during the argument. You weren't premeditating. You weren't thinking about it and doing it. Premeditators are people who cheat, narcissists, who intentionally try to manipulate you, who one day they love you, they love the death out of you, they want to be with you, and the next day they're throwing you to the wolves and everything's your fault and they can't stand you, and you're the reason why their life sucks. That's narcissistic behavior. Those are depressing people. Those are people with insecurity problems. You don't want to be that type of person. But if you're with a person who wants to resolve things with you, they're constantly trying to communicate with you. They're trying to say, hey, I'm trying to talk to you. I'm trying to give you flares in the air. I'm trying to give you warning signs to let you know, hey, I want to talk because I want to work this out. Remember, you should never, ever go longer than 48 hours without talking about anything that's important or talking, period. You should be talking at least every 8 hours minimum with someone you love, and any kind of conflict should never go longer than 48 hours, and it should never take more than 2 to 3 conversations to resolve. Okay? I hope this information was helpful to you, and if you want to talk to me personally, my email is below. Watch my iTunes, and I will talk to you soon.